So recently I've been working really hard on my mathematics. Yes, this is a tutorial about playing the piano, but I'm going to start off by talking about my experience with maths, or math, if you happen to live on the other side of the Atlantic. Now, when I was a kid at school, I wasn't very good at maths. Well, actually, I had the brain for it, I kind of enjoyed it when I was a small child, but then when I got to secondary school maths, I found it kind of boring. That's a pity because later in life, every now and then I've read books about maths and I've found it really interesting. Now I'm in a situation where I've got kind of a brainy 8-year-old and I'm trying to help him with his homework. And so I thought I'd start learning some maths again. But the reason I'm doing it, as well as just the fact that I'm just interested in it, is that I want to experience what it's like to learn a challenging skill as an adult. Because I have a problem. When I teach you guys about the piano, about music theory, whatever, I'm teaching you stuff that I learned when I was between the ages of 8 and 16. I experienced learning it as a child, but I'm trying to teach it to you as adults. Learning the piano as an adult is fundamentally different from learning the piano as a child. This is something I've never really appreciated properly in the past. It's really something that has come out of the research from a recent book, How to Be a Better Musician, where I kind of took a deep dive into the psychology of learning. But it's something that I've really come to realise. Kids have this tremendous advantage of having really plastic brains. They have huge neuroplasticity. Their brains form connections and reinforce connections really, really quickly. Now, adults are much, much slower. Neuroplasticity slows down throughout your life. But as adults, we have an overwhelming advantage, or several overwhelming advantages. We have much more patience than children. If you say to an 8-year-old learner, yeah, if you practice really hard, then in 2 years' time, you'll be pretty good at this. They're like, oh, what, 2 years? That's forever. You know, it seems like forever to the end of the week, let alone in 2 years' time. But if you say that to an adult will say, well, yeah, that sounds pretty reasonable. 2 years sounds like a reasonable time frame for making good progress and committing to something. As adults, we have much more experience of the process of learning. We have learnt how to learn. We're familiar with our own learning styles. We sometimes tend to overthink things and over-intellectualize things. We'll talk about that problem in a minute or two. But we are much better at taking a strategic view of learning. And we have a big problem in the piano teaching world because when we teach adults, tend to use the same approach that we use with children, because the people who design the courses, people like me, learned as kids and therefore think everyone learns the piano like they're a child. Now, I'm partially guilty of this myself, I think. I've got a really successful piano course here on YouTube. If you haven't seen it, there's a link in the description text down below. Check it out, it's completely free. And looking back at it now, and I kind of started shooting that kind of 5 years ago. It's been really popular. I know a lot of people have got through it, but I'm pretty sure that more people would have got through it if I had taken a more adult-focused approach. I think if you're taking a course like that as an adult, you can improve your chances by using this really important strategy that I'm going to talk about, and you can apply it to any kind of piano learning. And it's just about using more reinforcement than you think you need. Okay? So I talk to a lot of people who go through my piano course here on YouTube, my beginner's course, and something that I notice time after time is people tend to whiz through the first few lessons, and then they get to lesson 7 or 8 or 9. Typically it's lesson 9. That seems to be the kind of the break point, and they're like, oh no, everything suddenly has fallen apart. Everything's really difficult. But why is this their sudden leap in difficulty? And actually, there isn't a sudden leap in difficulty at lesson 9. What has happened is that people have skipped through the first few lessons thinking they're really easy because they can understand them at a mental level, but gradually the amount of stuff they're trying to remember in their conscious mind has built up to such a point that it's not sustainable, and by lesson 9, their heads go pop and they can't do it anymore. Okay? If though the people who tend to succeed, the people who tend not to run into problems by lesson 9 are those that are really thorough about the early lessons and do reinforcement practice and learn it beyond the point at which they feel they need to grasp it, okay? And often when people get to lesson 9 and say, look, I'm stuck, I say, go back and work hard on reinforcing your knowledge from the early lessons, okay? So a big favour you can do yourself if you're an adult learner is to reinforce what you're learning much harder than you think you need to. Let's talk about some strategies for doing that. The first reinforcement strategy I would use, and to kind of see if this works for you, is to take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. So this works really well if you are using a step-by-step course. So you might be working through a teach yourself book, you might be using my YouTube piano course. So you do like lesson 1 and lesson 2, and then take a look at lesson 1 again. And then you go on to lesson 3 and go a step back, look at lesson 2 again. Then you go on step 4. So you're kind of taking a step forward, but then going back again to review and practice what's gone before. And I would make that quite a structural process. So right, I've gone forward and done lessons 5 and 6. Let me just check on lesson 4 again. I've done 6 and 7. Let me go through lesson 5 again. And you should find that if you use that in tandem with a couple of the other reinforcement strategies I'm going to talk about in a moment, that should help you to increase and strengthen that foundation of knowledge that you need for when things start to get a little bit trickier. You can also use that strategy even if you're not following a set course. So, you know, say you feel you've been making progress in your piano playing recently, you've learnt a new piece, you've learnt to improvise on a new song or whatever. Go back and look at the stuff you were doing 2 weeks ago or a month ago and go through it again. Make sure you're happy with it, make sure you're comfortable with it. It's all about trying to build up firm foundations. Too many adults, and especially intelligent adults, okay, and this is you, too many intelligent adults think because they grasp something mentally, they've got the kind of physical instinctive skills. They end up trying to build the top of the skyscraper before they've got a proper firm foundation. The other kind of related skill is that you can use overshoot. Yeah. So yeah, you've finished this piece, you finished learning this piece, you finished working on lesson 4, but keep working on it when you go on to the new piece or lesson 5 or whatever, and keep working on it still along with the lesson 5 stuff or the other new piece when you go on to the next new thing. And that way you are kind of building in the more basic stuff that is underlying the stuff that is stretching you at the kind of the cutting edge of your learning. So overshoot each lesson so that you're still practicing the material from lesson A while you're on lesson B or lesson C or lesson D. That means you might get a snowball effect of work building up, and don't feel that you have to have perfected something before you drop it. Okay, so maybe you've got to lesson 9 and you're still working on this thing from lesson 4 and it's helping, but it's not quite perfect, it's not quite really there yet. You think you could maybe get it just a little bit better. To be honest, that's probably when diminishing returns are kicking in. Okay, you need to use some judgment there and keep your workload manageable while at the same time continuing to work on stuff. Yeah, don't have a mindset of oh yeah, I've done that, now I can do this, I've done that, now I can do this. Keep working on the stuff that precedes. Something else you can do is work really hard on drills. Now, children hate doing drills, they really, really hate it, but as an adult they can be strangely satisfying. Drills can mean scales, they can mean exercises from a book, they can mean exercises from things like my piano packs, which you might have seen, 6 PDF packs, each with an accompanying video. They've got pieces to learn, they've got exercises, they've got improvisation exercises, they've got quizzes. Check them out using the link below or in the top right hand corner. Working hard on drills is really going to help your physical skills and your mental skills as well. Anything that helps to mobilize your fingers on the keyboard is going to help. So do more of those than you think you need to. You can also use techniques like tallying and push past, which I talked about in a video 2 or 3 months ago, where you consciously practice beyond the point where you think you need to. It's another form of reinforcement exercise. Yes, I've practiced this thing, I feel like I've got it. No, what I'm going to do is practice it another 20 times and literally make a tally of the number of times you practice it. I'll share the video where I talked about that later. A lot of this comes down to what psychologists call system 1, system 2 thinking. Okay, again, this is something that I talk about in How to Be a Better Musician. A model of our mind, and it is only a model, it doesn't really describe what's going on in there, and certainly don't think about it in terms of kind of left brain, right brain, all of that stuff. A model of our mind that psychologists use is called dual process theory. We have system 1, system 2. System 1 deals with automatic stuff, things we do instinctively. It deals with stuff we have embedded in procedural memory. So if you go downstairs and make a cup of tea and you don't even remember doing it, that's because your procedural memory has done it. If you play a scale of C major automatically, that's because it's embedded in your procedural memory. That's system one, okay? System one is also your fight or flight. So if I came up behind you and went boo, that would trigger your system one. System two is much more reflective and reasoning and cognitive. And we have the illusion that system two is always in charge because we think we're always thinking about what we're doing. But system two can only do so much. It's very good at reasoning based skills. It's very good at high level cognitive stuff, but it tends to overestimate its own ability to do stuff. What happens when you're learning a complicated physical and mental skill like the piano is that you need to embed things very deeply into your system one memory. You need to make things very procedurally embedded. But your system two thinks, hey, yeah, I've got this. I understand what these notes are called. I understand how to find C. I understand, what the staves are on the piano. Got it. Move on to the next lesson. And yeah, maybe you've got it at a mental level, at a kind of cognitive level, a conscious level when you think about it, but it's not automatic. And that's when the problems happen. You get to lesson 9 and this stuff isn't automatic. So reinforcement learning, really drilling that stuff into your procedural memory, which happens so easily for kids, is the way to succeed as an adult. Right now I'm spending a lot of time thinking about the needs of older learners for the channel, because I notice that a lot of the people who follow my YouTube channel are kind of a little bit older. Yes, I've got a lot of people in 20s, 30s and 40s, but we have you guys in 50s, 60s, 70s and beyond as well. And I'm trying to develop new materials that really suit you. So I'm really interested in hearing about your experience of learning the piano, especially if you're an older adult. Any age really I'm interested in, but especially if you're a little bit older. Let me know down in the comments about how you have found it, about the particular frustrations you find, the things you find easy, the things you would like to see more of. One thing I want to do over the next year or two is probably develop more kind of learning resources, might be more books, more videos, whatever, that are specifically directed at the needs of you guys, of adult learners. A few minutes ago I mentioned tallying and push past. If you want to get started on working on that stuff straight away, why not check out this video, which is full of specific techniques that you can use to improve your learning right now.